Did you love Faster Than Light, but yearned for a more action-orientated space roguelike? Did No Man's Sky leave a galaxy-sized hole in your space gaming heart? Well, Everspace might just be the game for you. You're dropped into the cockpit of a spacecraft and must jump system to system to escape the unrelenting alien fleets and outlaws that make space so unsafe. Like Faster Than Light, you choose a course through a set of points that are actually maps. The goal is to jump to the next sector through a jump gate, and each one becomes increasingly more difficult. Mechanic skills are paramount as you'll need to manage your spacecraft along the way. You need to fuel to keep going, and whenever you get into a fight, you need to be able to repair yourself. All of your ship's systems have their own damage profile. For example, life support can choke you to death if you don't fix it. You'll find yourself crossing your fingers for components on every jump, and it is truly an adrenaline rush once something on your ship goes wrong. Everspace has only just dropped into early access on Steam, but a lot of the game is here. With the overview out of the way, I'm going to go over my thoughts in depth on the mechanics of the game and answering the question needed to be answered. Is it worth a buy? If you want to see space environments done right, you need to look no further. Planets, nebulae, and other celestial entities form a beautiful backdrop to the objects in the playable space. Asteroids and patchworks of scuttled spacecraft play with the lighting, and there's some pretty dizzying particle effects too, from lightning storms and gas clouds to black holes that can and will swallow you whole. Then again, a lot is to be expected from the Unreal 4 engine, and this game is a great showcase for it. If you have played the latest Unreal Tournament, you will also be accustomed to the quality of models that translates over to this game. I'm not sure exactly on the trickery of Unreal 4's code, but there is a certain way the textures come out that makes them really pop, which translates to this game too. I didn't run my FPS counter, but that's because I didn't notice stuttering or slowdowns, so it slipped my mind. In short, it's a win-win, or at least for my rig anyway. The game plays a lot like other space shooters, think of Freelancer, and it is fairly similar. You're able to strafe and roll around your heart's desire, and everything felt smooth if not slightly on the arcadey side. To begin with, the controls were a little odd, with middle mouse being target and alt being look around the cockpit, but I stuck with it, and it became second nature, and controlling a ship is easy. Unless of course your stabilizer gets hit, and then you will be barreling around like a one-legged kangaroo, but that is only if you can't fix it. The combat to begin with will put you against scout ships that have a small shield and health, piddly drones that have a slither of health but can put out a lot of projectiles down range, and you do need to use energy weapons to take down shields and kinetic weapons for the hull itself, which gives a little complexity to the combat, but combat really comes into light the further you get into the sectors. The later ships will have different combinations of weapon types. They also have drones to solely capture you in tractor beams, drones to heal back their shields to full, and much more. They make the combat a lot more dynamic. I mean, there is some skill in delegating targets and engaging the later game ships. There are bosses too which have extra health or special drones that make your life just that bit more difficult. What is there to do in space? Well, apart from the goal to jump deeper into the galaxy, there will occasionally be NPC given missions that could request for assistance when, say, a freighter is caught in a minefield, or they're just generally under attack by outlaws. There are also bounties on special characters, which I mentioned before, and the destruction ultimately means a bag of money in your hand. There's resources in asteroids, gas clouds, and dropped by vanquished foes, which can upgrade and repair your equipment to ready you for the more next dangerous sector of space. Don't fret though, as mining is quick, and one deposit will be over in only a few seconds. There are also jettisoned or actively guarded cargo holds which you can plunder and will give you new equipment. The sets of weapons, shields and consumables aren't necessarily better than one another, and you'll have to make the hard decision whether to say keep the space shotgun or the Gatling gun. There are also hazards to avoid like black holes which have a pull around the map and you'll be constantly swimming against it. There are resources to mine here too, but only for the bravest or those with the most decent thrusters. The maps are also filled with roaming enemies and neutral mining corps which you can choose to avoid or engage, and sometimes you will be so desperate for fuel you have to attack a civilian mining facility, and it can really get intense when you haven't found the right materials. Each time you die, you'll have to start again at the first space of Sector 1, each life eerily marked as a notch in the timeline of desperate pilots trying to traverse the galaxy. However, there is a persistent progression system, and this is through perks. Each perk will slightly buff your starting components, subcomponents, and abundance of good gear. The general idea is get as far as you can, upgrade as much as possible, and try to get further next time with a better ship. For the most part, I think the system works well at hooking you in and wanting to keep playing. I started this morning, and before I knew it, I had a 6-hour game session on my hands. The way you earn these perks is by collecting money dropped by enemies or looted from the derelicts whilst you are playing. The game also has trading ships and ships that you can dock on and repair, refuel or upgrade when you're in real trouble, but this will mean you also have less money for your perks at the end of the life, which adds to a dilemma that always gets me a little dizzy. Music is generally good in space games, and the composure hits the right mark here too, complementing the ballad of your space opera rather nicely. The sounds from plasma, engines rumble and general explosions satisfy the ear too. Some minor things though, whilst the debris and asteroids complemented by backdrops of planetoids and nebulae are gorgeous, I can see the repetition of the environments as something that may start to rub on players after a while. Even though there is quite a good set of environmental anomalies, like the black holes and backdrops that make them look different every time, you're still fighting in relatively randomly generated areas of limited sets of rocks and shipwrecks. This obviously can be expanded with more environmental props. Also, in space games, the body of the content is in your ships and engaging enemy ships. It is also something that all games that have procedural generation in their DNA have to contend with. Also, collecting resources can be a little tedious when they float off into space. I mean, it's cool that they have these physics, but they seem to float in literally opposite directions. I think that a little stronger pull on your ship's gravity would set this straight. And I'm sure with time there will be a lot more things dropped in on this game as it evolves from early access to full release. Something they are hoping to add in the near future is VR support for the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive. I can see how it would work, as you're already able to 360 look around the cockpit in your ship, and the game's gorgeous looks will surely allow you to suspend your disbelief and really feel like you're a space ace. But it will be Iron Man mode in my opinion. The game is hard enough already when you try and use the first person camera, so using your two VR controllers will leave you at a bit of a disadvantage. I don't think this is a bad thing, by the way. If people hated a challenge, the Dark Souls games would never be as popular as they are. So it will be fun for any slightly masochistic VR dungeon crawling veteran. Dynamic cockpit displays are also being planned for player ships, so seeing the readings and dials bleeping will boost that VR experience. They say they'll also add a non-linear story. I'm not exactly sure how this will pan out. I can see a narrative regarding the races and factions giving the universe more weight, and I would like there to be more factions in the game, as it's always fun when civilian ships and outlaws fight, or the outlaws and the aliens fight in game. But I could see a story acting as a backbone for getting to the end of space, which again I'm not even sure what lies at the end of it, if anything at the present moment. So, although there's some quite big features coming to finish off the game, is it really an incomplete experience as it is tagged as an early access game? Well, honestly, taking it purely as a roguelike and a space action experience, it's extremely solid. The progression of upgrading your ship gives you a reason to keep coming back, and getting that little bit further into the galaxy. So I would highly recommend the game to anyone who is interested in spaceship combat, roguelike type games, and people who are on the edge already thinking they are quite interested in the game. However, the game is currently £23, and if you have no interest in the genre, maybe too much of an investment for an early access title. Either way, like I said, I played it for a solid 6-hour game session, and I loved every moment of it. Apart from dying. Anyway, what does everyone else think? Is this something that you could get into? Are you keeping your distance from early access games due to past experiences? Or will this be something you'll throw your money at soon? Be sure to let me know in the comments section below. If you thought this video effectively hopped into your sector, give it a like. If you thought it got sucked into a black hole, give it a dislike. I'm thinking of tryharding and uploading a full run through at some point with live commentary, just wondering what other people would think of that. Anyway, hit that subscribe button if you want to keep up with the latest gaming sensations and a touch of Joshino. Thank you all very much for watching. Until next time, Joshino.